Before we talk about habits, before we talk about addiction, I want you to answer one honest question. When was the first time you realized you were doing something automatically and it scared you? Not because it was dramatic, but because you didn't choose it. You just found yourself there. Your hand reached for it. Your mind justified it. And only afterward did you think, how did I get here again? If you've ever felt that moment, this video is for you. Because what you're about to hear is not about discipline. It's about how habits are formed, how addiction grows, and how understanding, not force, is what brings real change. Now let me tell you a story. Her name is Mara. Not because that's her real name, but because it could be anyone's name. Mara didn't wake up one day and decide to struggle with a habit she couldn't control. No one ever does. It started quietly. Years earlier, Mara was in a season of her life that felt heavy but invisible. Nothing dramatic, no big crisis anyone would notice, just pressure, just expectations, just the feeling of always needing to be okay. Every day, she showed up, smiled when necessary, did what was required, but inside, something felt constantly tight, like a string pulled too far. One evening, after a long day, she discovered something. Small. Not a miracle, not a solution, just a moment of relief. For the first time in weeks, her body relaxed, her mind slowed down, the noise inside her head softened, and her brain noticed. Not consciously, not logically, but neurologically. Her brain made a quiet note. This helps. The next time she felt overwhelmed, her brain remembered. No decision, no debate, just a gentle nudge. Then again, and again. What started as an occasional relief became a pattern. But here's the part people often miss. Mara didn't feel trapped at first. She felt functional. The habit helped her cope. It helped her sleep. It helped her feel normal. It worked. Until one day, something strange happened. She reached for it without thinking. And that's when the fear crept in. Not panic, not guilt, just a quiet realization. I didn't choose this. She started asking herself questions that had no easy answers. Why do I always want this when I feel stressed? Why does my body react before my mind? Why does willpower disappear in certain moments? Mara tried to stop. She promised herself she would. She tried distractions. Sometimes it worked. But whenever life applied pressure again, the habit returned. Not because she was weak, but because her brain had learned something important. When you feel like this, do that. This is where many people misunderstand addiction. They think the problem is desire, but desire is not the root. The root is learning. Mara's brain had learned a shortcut, a way to change her internal state quickly. And once the brain learns that, it doesn't forget easily. Not because it wants to harm you, but because it wants to protect you. That's the part nobody tells you. Addictive habits often begin as survival tools. They are not born out of pleasure alone. They are born out of relief. And relief is powerful. Years later, when Mara finally sat down to understand what was happening, not to judge herself, but to learn, something shifted. She stopped asking, "What's wrong with me?" and started asking, "What did my brain learn?" That question changed everything. Because habits are not moral failures, they are patterns of learning, and anything learned can be relearned. Mara's story is not unique. It is the story of habits that begin as help, behaviors that once served a purpose, and brains that learned to cope the best way they knew. And this is where Atomic Habits by James Clear gives us language for what's really happening. Because habits are not random, they are not mysterious, and they are not proof that something is wrong with you. They follow a pattern, a predictable loop. And once you understand that loop, you stop fighting blindly, and you start reclaiming choice. So in this video, we are going to explore how habits are formed, why addiction feels automatic, what Edward Thorndike discovered back in 1898, and how the 4 stages of habit formation explain behaviors we struggle to understand. This is not about shame. This is about clarity. Let's begin. James Clear makes a powerful statement in Atomic Habits. Habits do not restrict freedom, they create it. At first, that sounds strange, because when people hear the word habit, they often think of addiction, bad routines, feeling trapped, and loss of control. But habits exist because the brain is designed to conserve energy. Your brain is constantly asking, how can I do this with less effort next time? Habits are mental shortcuts learned from experience. Without habits, you would have to think about every single action. Every decision would drain you. You would experience decision fatigue constantly. Habits free your mind to focus on higher-level thinking. The problem is not habits themselves. The problem is which habits get automated. In 1898, psychologist Edward Thorndike conducted one of the most important learning experiments in history. He placed animals in what were called puzzle boxes. Inside the box, the animal was trapped. Outside the box was food. At first, the animal struggled randomly, scratching, pushing, jumping. Eventually, by trial and error, the animal accidentally performed the right action, pulling a lever or stepping on a switch, and the door opened. What Thorndike noticed was powerful. Each time the animal repeated the trial, the useless actions decreased. The successful action happened faster, and the behavior became automatic. Thorndike called this the law of effect. Behaviors followed by satisfying outcomes are more likely to be repeated. This is the foundation of habit formation. Your brain remembers what worked, what brought relief, what reduced discomfort, what felt rewarding, and it stores it for future use. The 4 stages of habit formation. James Clear breaks habit formation into 4 stages. 1. Cue. 2. Craving. 3. Response. 4. Reward. Let's break this down carefully because this explains both habits and addiction. Stage 1. Cue, the initiator of behavior. The cue is the trigger. It signals the brain something important is about to happen. Cues can be a time of day, an emotion, a location, a person, a thought, a sensation. But here's the key insight. Cues are meaningless until they are interpreted. A cue only becomes powerful when the brain assigns meaning to it. It is not the object. It is not the environment. It is the interpretation. Stage 2, craving, the motivational force. Craving is where things get misunderstood. James Clear explains this clearly. What you crave is not the habit itself, but the change of state it delivers. You do not crave the cigarette, the phone, the behavior itself. You crave relief, comfort, escape, control, calm, pleasure, distraction. Every craving is linked to a desire to change your internal state. This is critical in understanding addiction. Stage 3, response, the habit itself. The response is the actual habit you perform. It can take the form of an action, a thought, a behavior, a pattern of avoidance. Whether the response happens depends on how motivated you are, how difficult it feels, and how automatic it has become. The easier the response, the more likely it is to happen. This is why repeated behaviors become so powerful. Stage 4, reward, the end goal. Rewards satisfy the craving. Rewards teach the brain what to remember and signal whether the behavior is worth repeating. If the reward meets your expectation, the habit is reinforced, the loop strengthens, and the behavior becomes more automatic. No reward, no habit.
why addiction is a learned loop. Addiction follows the same habit loop, the difference is intensity and repetition. Over time, the brain learns that a certain behavior quickly changes internal state. The habit becomes deeply wired, and the cue triggers craving almost instantly. The brain is not asking, is this good for me long term? The brain is asking, did this work before? This is not weakness. This is learning. James Clear emphasizes something very important. The thoughts, feelings, and emotions of the observer are what transform a cue into a craving. Two people can experience the same cue. Only one develops a craving. Why? Because cues are filtered through past experiences, emotional memory, and learned associations.